Well, good afternoon, everybody. I will moderate this panel of managing data in the democratic society, transparency, privacy, and integrity. It's not easy, no? It's a nice panel with a very good speakers, as you have seen just before. Well, we have Jordi Baylina, the technical lead and co-founder of Polygon ID, Polygon Hermez. Belén Martín, privacy and corporate lawyer. And Vasily Vidmanov, CEO of AMLBot and PureFi. I would like that you introduce yourself first a little to the audience, what you are doing, everyone, and then we start the panel itself.
Well, I'm Jordi Baylina. I'm technical lead at Polygon Hermez. I'm mainly a developer. I like to code. That's mainly what I'm doing. I am also creating some companies and some other things, but my passion is to code. And well, I just did the presentation before. You know that what's my passion.
Hi, everyone. My name is Belén Martín, and I'm a privacy corporate lawyer. I'm based in Barcelona, partner of Lexley Worldwide. I help online business owners to grow exponentially in the digital world, giving the proper legal tools and advice.
My name is Vasily. I'm the CEO of AMLBot and PureFi. And with both of the companies, we're trying to bridge the gap between the cryptocurrency and compliance. And actually with PureFi, we are focused on the user's privacy and compliance at the same time, because there is clearly a very big gap of how much information we produce and the data management of this information.
Okay. Well, for starting, I want to make a reflection to the audience that managing the new democratic societies, he was explaining before about liquid democracy, these new possible democracies, is facing, to me, one of the biggest challenges is how we manage this data. I think the law of Moore is accomplishing, and in data is also happening, and maybe at more speed than the law of Moore. Every year we have maybe the double of data, producing the double of data of the year before. And the huge amounts of data that we will produce in the metaverse will be enormous, no? How we manage all this data and how we make that transparent, private, and that helps to the democracy. Because the other question is, there is democracy without transparency or privacy or integrity? Is possible? We see that maybe there is some places that are named democracies, and we see that there is a lack of these three components. No? Also, in our societies, now in terms of data, these three, transparency, privacy, and integrity, are not very well managed. Then I think that we are facing one of the biggest challenges to get to this democracy or digital democracy that we are saying, is how we manage all these enormous quantity of data. Then I will make a first question to all of you. You can answer everyone. How important is to clarify and make transparent the ownership of the data? Because, okay, we talk about transparency, but transparency for what? And what I'm saying is, transparency, how important is to be transparent in the ownership level of the data.
Quirze, you're talking about the person's data. I like to call it. Is your digital identity. At the end, your data is very much a digital identity. It's interesting to see, for example, that in some modern constitutions, and this is something that's some places, Switzerland, some places in Switzerland, some places in France, so they are adding to the constitution this concept of digital identity. The same way that you have the physical identity or even the mental identity, and there is a protection in the constitution so that your identity, the people cannot manipulate your body. Well, there's some exceptions, medicine and so forth. It's your data, it's yours. Your body is yours, okay? Or your brand is yours. This is for the cults and for the things. It's something that's really protected in most of the modern constitutions. So here the concept of digital identity, meaning mainly your data, or your identity in the metaverse, if you want, or in the internet, or in the digital world, how this is protected, how this is owned. And the same way that your body is yours, or your brand is yours, and nobody can steal, here happens a little bit with the data. This is something that we have not seen in the last years, and we have seen some aggressions in the last years about your data, and people is realizing that the data is important, but the ownership of the data is not just data that you hold or that somebody holds about you. It's your digital identity. It's your life. It's part of yourself.
Yeah.
And this needs to be protected very much from the legal perspective.
To become transparent is important let's say, for the ownership of this data.
You should be able to be as transparent as you want. But if you are proving something, if you want to be transparent, you have the right to be transparent, and you need the tools to be transparent. But the same way that you have the right to be transparent, you also have the right to be for the privacy, the right to not being transparent, not being privacy. And I think this is a right for itself. Okay, so that your data is protected is important. And here, that the persons are in control of his data, so what data they want to reveal, which data they want to reveal, what data they want to prove, what data they want to prove, this is the important. And here is but this must be the decision of the individual. It cannot be the decision of a third party. Here, we can talk about the ownership of the data, and you guys know that data, it's always, a lot of times has like two parties here, and this is more a legal part.
Let's see what Belena's lawyer thinks about that.
I think transparency of the use of data is possible, but transparency of the ownership, it brings some challenges, obviously. And I think you have to distinguish between personal data and non-personal data, okay? Personal data, obviously, the GDPR says the data holder is the owner of the data, so there is no doubt about it. But the problem here is a lot of companies, for instance, that do big data projects, they start creating new data sets, and who owns that? The companies will say, well, I am the owner because I invested money, time.
It's here where I'm going.
And then, who is the owner? And basically the companies say, well, I'm the owner, but we can find specific situations which can be a little bit challenging, because if in that data set you have personal data and the data subject exercises the right of cancellation, then you have to find a way to remove that data from that data set, which you have been used probably for business purposes, okay? This is I think one of the issues. And the other one is if it's non-personal data, obviously you're generating there as well, but then companies, there is no law that says that regulates data as the ownership of data as of today, okay? So we don't have IP rights over data. Data is not an asset or a property. So basically companies will start saying, well, this is trade secrets, this is confidential information. And then obviously the way to share that will be through a contract with someone else where they will place the proper warranties in a sense that this is confidential information, you can use it only for specific purposes, so this way you're really limiting the use of data. So this could bring a lot of challenges in that sense. So I guess transparency on the ownership of data, it's a challenging issue.
Yeah, but without the transparency, we can be sure about the ownership?
Yeah, I think, well, in the EU data strategy, I mean, the aim is to create a market where all the data is shared, okay? They will create share mechanisms. They will create laws that allow use and reuse of data, but we had to see how this evolves. I mean, it's open for now.
Vasily, what do you think about
Yeah, I think there is a problem with the amount of the same data that we provide on the daily basis. I think none of us remember all of the websites and all of the companies that we provided our data to, right? On average, a person has over 200, 300 different accounts tied to just one email address, right? And I would assume 80% of this information is repetitive, right? And now with new generations, I still cannot figure if I'm Gen Z or millennial, but I had my first email account when I was 9 years old, right? So, and now the kids already have their accounts when they're like 6 or 5 years old, and they generate enormous amount of data, and the problem with the data management becomes very relevant. So nowadays we talked a lot about sustainability, right? Sustainability in terms of resources, recycling, reusing things, and I think the same is applicable for the data. So the data should also be sustainable, and you can have your digital identity where you own and you just have one basically document or one credential that you can reuse with the other entities, and then this becomes a transparent, you become the transparent owner of this data. So, but I agree that nowadays, at least as of now, it doesn't work like that. So now we just have to figure out with the help of GDPR and other regulations how to sort all of this data that is stored within those companies. And I'm quoting here, 76% of this information is even unused by those companies. So it's just sitting there, it has no use, and yeah, we have to figure it out.
Yeah, you've talked, you've talked about identity, digital identity, and now you talked about regulations, GDPR, global regulations. Do you think that a global standard about digital identity is the first step to solve?
I think that there is a more fundamental issue, is who owns this data, yes, who owns this digital identity. Because if we're talking about a format or a standard, like the machines nowadays, they understand all of the formats, right? Any format you can imagine can be understood. The same analogy, I remember we used to have audio files in various formats, and then the MP3 format came around, and all of the mobile phones used to understand this format. So I think the more fundamental issue is it you and the issuer of the information that stores the identity? Or is it every single data controller that stores this information, being a government, a bank, insurance company, social media and stuff? And in the second scenario, the identity basically becomes a product and is getting resold. So in a sense, humans, and because their data is owned by so many entities, in a sense, they also become owned and controlled. So I think the fundamental question is for the individual to own its credential.
Yeah. And Belén, is also for you this question. Do you think a global standard? You know a lot of GDPR, there is other laws in other jurisdictions. A global standard about digital identity is the first step?
Yes, it is a first step, but I mean, we have seen the GDPR giving control over the data to data subjects, to citizens, but the reality has proved otherwise. I mean, we see like dark patterns, people really being control over the internet and the way they want to act. Sometimes, you know, you have to click yes, even though you want to contract a service, you want to access the website. And that has been going on for the last 10 years or more. So I think it's a first step for citizens who have presence in the digital world to really, you know, collect all the data, you know, to know where the data is. But I think it's a change of paradigm. It really, you know, it requires really a new business model where citizens and individuals are placed in the center, where they can control data, when they can know where the data is, they can, you know, control and use it as they want. You know, it's a total different perspective. And I mean, there has been, since 2015, there have been models like they were called data privacy services or data privacy lockers. And this model wanted to be imposed in a sense that empower the individuals, you know, to have control of their data. But, you know, I mean, we're in 2022 and we're still in the same situation, right?
And for the developers, you are a coder. If you have a standard to code, it's not easier and makes quicker all.
Yeah, I think that this will happen naturally, and it will not come for sure for any institution or any government. Institutions will never align. You know, if US is doing something, Europe is going to do the opposite.
No.
So a standard, if it comes from one of these, it's not going to happen. But if it comes from just many of the protocols that internet appear there, the people will start using from the roots some standard, and there's going to be an open standard, and the people will start use that. So, and then the institutions will adopt that. Okay, but this is something that needs to come from the community. It needs to come from just some random developers, put some open source there, so just propose some protocols. And, well, people, they are easy enough, easy to understand. Other developers start to adopt, and when there is some network effect on this protocol, then this will just become standard. And we need that. Okay? And the thing is, here is that, for example, the technology for identity, here is an important technology, that's the zero knowledge. Okay? Zero knowledge is quite
Here I want to come.
Yeah, but this is a new technology that just, it's a technology that mainly what allows you is to reveal, so just to have a lot of control of what your data are revealing, and actually it's not about you are giving data, you are proving data. Okay, so, and this is a technology that's really new. Has been...
Then please explain to the audience properly what you are doing, because to the audience it's important to know that Jordi has released it, I think 2 months ago or less, no? A very important development for the escalation of all that. The question of data, we are talking here that we are generating enormous quantity of data. Every solution that we tackle for this problem that is enormous, we need an escalation solution for blockchain, because with a normal blockchain we cannot tackle that.
So all the decentralized systems, they have this problem. It's that they don't scale. Okay, so, but this is common not only to any data. Actually, data is probably a special thing. But in general, when you are having a decentralized system, when you're having a blockchain, these blockchains do not scale. Why do not scale? Because at the end it's a consensus. You know, these blockchains, if you understand how they work, at the end it's many computers just having a consensus, reaching a consensus in agreeing on something. So this cannot go fast, because now you go always to the one that goes slower one. So, and if you want to be decentralized, you need to rely in a small computer, and then this does not scale. Bitcoin can only create 1,000 transactions every 10 minutes, and you can do whatever. You can only do 1,000 transactions. Ethereum is a little bit better, but you can do only 30 transactions per second, which at global scale is nothing. So it's useless if you want to use that in a global scale. So if you want to create any system for any data, so for digital identity, for example, but for any other applications, you need to scale those systems. And zero-knowledge technology is also very helpful for that. But it's a casualty. You know, it's a technology that can be used for scaling and can be used also for privacy. And actually, there are two different use cases, very different, but the technology is the same. Yeah, the end is verification of computation. You can verify with this zero-knowledge. You can verify a computation is good without having to run the program again, and you can do it really fast, okay? But you can run it really fast. Actually, you are hiding information, so that's why you can use that the same thing for privacy, okay? So, and this zero-knowledge technology it's a technology that's as important even as blockchain. People compare zero-knowledge as a blockchain from the technology perspective because it's something that's really new, and it's something that allows us to have a lot of control of the information, especially for privacy. Here in the world, we have these two forces that they contradict one each other, and we are finding the balance. In one side, we want privacy, and here is all the GDPR rules and that. But on the other side, we have all the security. You know, governments, we don't want to have terrorist people, and we don't want people to do money laundering.
We need transparency.
You need this transparency. So governments require data to be available, but on the other side, you have the right to be privacy. So how you solve that, both things? And here is where zero-knowledge can, and when you can solve both things. With zero-knowledge, you can have full control of what data and what information you are giving to the user. So if I put you an example, if you are hiring an insurance is going to ask you a bunch of medical information about yourself. He will know everything, but the insurance, the only thing that it needs, if you fulfill certain parameters or not to get the insurance. So with zero-knowledge, you can prove to the insurance that you are okay for this kind of insurance, but you don't need to reveal all the medical information about yourself. And this precision of the information that you are revealing, that you are proving to a third party, this is what the zero-knowledge allows. And this is why this technology is so important for privacy, because it allows to solve both things. I can, for example, other applications, I can prove to you that I paid the taxes perfectly, the right way, but without revealing how much I paid. This is something, since the privacy, that's the problem. Financial systems, the banks and the exchanges and all the financial systems, they are spending a bunch of money just to get in KYC, AML. A lot of departments, they're just checking information. It's and they don't care at all. You know, in exchange, they want you just to send money, do an exchange, and send you back. You are just a number. You don't care about who you are. But they are forced to do that because the government is asking them to do their job for them somehow. And so in this, but here is the problem, you know, because the government, imagine that the government is telling, hey, give me the data of this guy. So you know that this guy is investigated by the government. So the government is just breaking all the privacy rules about yourself. But you have another problem as an exchange. You have the problem that you may be leaked. The information that you are forced to keep, it may be leaked. So your information can become public at some point. So with zero knowledge, for example, it allows you to have a financial service that you don't need to reveal all the information about yourself. You are just proving that you are doing the things right. Maybe you are just passing some audit to some third party or whatever. You don't hold any information. You are just a number. And you don't need to pass through all the process. This simplifies a lot the work of the financial institutions, and it keeps you much better, and it protects much better the privacy of the persons. This is some examples of why this technology is so important. So and going back to the protocol, or to the standard protocol, I do not understand a standard protocol without this technology in place. And this technology is new. So this technology, in 2015, this is less than 10 years ago, nobody knew what it was. There were very few people in the world. We're talking less than 20 persons in the full world that knew about this technology. The first time that the zero knowledge was invented was in the 80s.
You mean if there is a standard, should take into account this?
Should take in account this. And the protocols for zero knowledge are advancing really fast at this point. Every time they are faster and better, but they are too new. The things, the protocols, for example, that we are implementing for scaling or for the identity, they were invented in 2020, 2021. We are talking about 2 years ago.
Well, you invented some of them.
You cannot create a standard. You can do things, but a standard, just something that was created, and that probably next year is going to be a new protocol that's going to be much better than the last one. So we are learning. So we need there requires some time to be more clear what's the final solution here. But the standard will become naturally. This is something that's happening. We are seeing.
Because it's clear that there is here a lot of other panels about metaverses and blockchains, and the issue is the interoperability is the main question. And if we don't go to the path of having a standard on digital identity, this interoperability is a chimera. It's not possible.
We need that, and it's gonna happen, and it's gonna happen organically. We will see. I bet that in no more than 2-3 years, we will see a standard in digital identity that will succeed.
Belén, what do you think that are the main challenges and the best good practices in terms of privacy compliance in relation of the big data?
Yeah.
Big data, sorry. Well,
big data, it's about collecting large amounts of data, and that obviously goes in conflict with the GDPR. But we also know that big data can bring a lot of benefits, medical and so on. Well, the main challenge is the lack of transparency, of course. Companies they do not reveal their processing activities, so data subjects really don't know what's going on with their data. Then they collect more data than is supposed to. There is a large amount of data that obviously goes against the principle of minimization. And also, as they collect data, they have other uses of that data. So at the end, they're using data without the consent or without really the data subject or the citizen knowing what's going on. In terms of best practices, I think the first one will be to involve the whole organization. It's very important that all the employees, everyone knows that the data has a value. That if you're releasing a product or a service, you have to understand what is the right data to collect, how to store it, how to select it, etc. Then I think it's important to have an expert, a data privacy officer, or some kind of person in the organization that understands about data privacy, has the knowledge. Doesn't have to be a data privacy officer. It can be someone with knowledge on data privacy. And then also you have to do mapping of your data. I think this is very important. You have to know where your data flows go from collecting to storing to usage to destruction. And during this life cycle, you have to start applying the data principles: minimization, privacy by design, privacy by defect, which basically in the whole data flow, you have to start placing the security measures, technical, organizational, to secure the data, okay? And then, of course, you have to do minimization plan. You have to know what data do I need, what for, okay? And when that's clear, obviously, your purpose, and then you have to inform clients through privacy notices. Obviously, big data projects take time, so the purpose can change over time. So privacy notice had to be given as the purpose changes. And then you have to look at the accuracy of the data. This is very important because sometimes we're collecting data. We don't know if this is accurate, if it's something wrong. So if you're making decisions based on data that is inaccurate, obviously those decisions will be inaccurate as well. And then you had to be able to address the rights of the subjects. You had to implement processes in that sense. And then you had to monitor. All, from the whole big data project, you really have to revise and monitor, that the purpose is the same, if it has changed, the quality of the data, and so on. And in terms of security measures, I think anonymization is a good option. I think zero-knowledge proof goes toward that, in a sense that if you anonymize data, the GDPR does not apply. Okay, so in that way, it's a way somehow to really use freely the data that you are producing in a big data project.
Yeah. Vasily, he has talked a lot about zero knowledge proof, but we all know here that the KYC procedure isn't a stopper, a friction for DeFi development. We have been living on that. Is there a technical solution using zero knowledge, verifiable credentials to reduce this friction?
Yes, the simple question is yes. And we're actually working on such a solution. So there are two aspects to this question. Of course, the KYC is a stopper, but unfortunately, or fortunately, it depends how you look at it, this is something inevitable that will happen for DeFi as well. And the reason why, because there is an organization called Financial Action Task Force, or FAT, that provides the recommendations about the money laundering, and almost all of the countries in the world are members of that organization. So basically, it effectively means that they have to enforce those recommendations on the local level. And their message is that any DeFi arrangement that has a beneficial entity behind it, it can be a company like Uniswap Labs behind the Uniswap protocol that gets a share of the fees, or if it's an individual that controls the smart contract in some way, then that entity is a virtual asset service provider, meaning that that entity needs to enforce KYC and AML. So we should be seeing this in the next 1 or 2 years enforced in the local level. So then how do we take this KYC concept and apply it to DeFi? Because that almost sounds like two very opposite things, because in DeFi, users want to be anonymous, they want their privacy to be preserved, and of course, things need to be decentralized. So by applying SSI model, which is a self-sovereign identity, and using verifiable credentials, there is a way on how to do it. It's not an easy way, but basically with PureFi, that solution that we built, we have a framework for AML and KYC where we apply the SSI model, and we have an issuer, which can be a KYC provider that issues the credential to the user. We have a verifier, which is our smart contracts that then verifies this data, and we have the prover, which is the user. Within this model, we actually have two modes. One is interactive, and the second one is non-interactive, where non-interactive is the perfect representation of the SSI triangle, where the user stores the verifiable credential locally, and then using the ZK circuit app, generates the proof and feeds it to the dApp that then includes it in the transaction on the blockchain and sends it to the target smart contract, which then verifies if the information is valid. So it sounds a bit complex, but basically it gives an opportunity, to the dApps operators to set up certain rules for the wallets, aka users, that they want to interact with. And users would not have to disclose their full KYC data because verifiable credentials allow for a thing that is known as selective disclosure, where basically, I mean, most of the time you just need to, when you're doing the KYC, you need to prove that you're over 18 years old, you are not from a sanctioned country, you are not on the sanction list, and you are not a politically exposed person. So it's a simple yes or no question without knowing your name, knowing your actual age, knowing your country of origin. And I think this is something that the DeFi community at least can agree to, right? So they will just prove this information without disclosing the actual details. And the last aspect to it, that once the wallet or user gets this verifiable credential, the proof that it was issued gets recorded on the public registry, which is blockchain. So then the public information is that the user actually done the KYC, the verifiable credential was issued, and this is publicly accessible. So again, it gives an opportunity to the dApps. They don't need to store any data themselves. They don't need to do the KYC. They simply can query another smart contract and ask if this user is KYC'd and if he fulfilled or she the rules that they require. So in the simple terms, this is the solution.
Yeah, well, what we see, that the technology is there.
Yeah.
Okay, Jordi, you explained the use case. To end our panel, I will end with a more visionary open discussion. And I will start explaining a speaker that I had here in Barcelona 4 years ago. Is David Siegel, the name of this guy. He was the CEO of, at the time, Pillar Wallet. I don't know if you remember this project. But the vision of this guy impressed me at this time 4 years ago in terms of data, because he explained to me that the solution for the data is that every human has his own repository of data, of all the digital data that we generate. And this data is owned and kept by this human. And he explained me then, and also that allows a new kind of business that is a marketplace of assistants powered by artificial intelligence based on your own data. Instead of having Siri or Alexa, you will have a marketplace where you will buy this assistant who is better, Alexa, Siri. This year I want Alexa. And Alexa will read my data and will help me and will be my assistant in the digital world. Okay? That 4 years ago, explained by David better than me, was shocking to me. And I thought that that is a utopia, no? And it was a perfect world. My question and my open discussion here, and also for all of you, is how far you think that we are in technological terms and in, let's say, political or governmental terms of having these repositories and having this AI power. We have seen now this year the big advancement of AI. That seems that technologically is possible, what I'm saying. How far we are from that?
Technology is there.
Is there?
It's almost there for this. Let me just
At this time was not there.
There is one thing that it's maybe going again for me. It's like when I see AI apply it to your data. Now I'm seeing my data very much as my body.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so just that the AI is playing with my body or the AI is playing with my data. This is a personal opinion, so at least it's, I'm not going to allow my data to be played at that. But I respect that somebody wants to is his data the same way that you can do.
Wants an assistant to go.
It's a thing, and it's your body. You decide what you want to do with your body. Okay, but I would not allow, and I would like that the people understand that the data is something that's sensible. It's something that's you don't play.
Imagine that this artificial intelligence is trustable for you because it's open source. I don't know.
What I can tell you is that at this point, for example, there are start to be some systems where you can apply AI algorithms with encrypted data. Okay? This is something that it's still a little bit early in the technology, so this is not there yet, but we are start seeing that. From the zero knowledge, for example, you can prove that this is a result of, for example, an algorithm given this data. This is already done. But homomorphic encryption is something that's evolving, and I would expect that this is something that would be possible in the, I don't know, I'm going to put here, I don't have a crystal ball, but maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 years, it probably would be possible, maybe with some limited algorithms. These algorithms are quite heavy. Okay? But this is something that's definitively possible. This is, I think, is one important piece if you want to play with your data, but keeping
but if you are the custodial and you keep your data and your assistant is not good, you say, okay, you are fired out, I want another assistant, I pay to another and I have another assistant.
My concern is that right now this is very easy to do that in the bad way. So it's very easy to just keep your data and you want to sell it, you just send the file in open to somebody else just keep a copy of your data and, well, you don't know. And this is technology for doing that is here. It's much easy, and if we are start playing with this kind of markets, well, at least let me express my concern of a society where the personal data is traded this way. It's like, for me, again, it's like thinking that, just, my organs are traded.
No, but it's not traded, but it's used for your
you can use it for good and for bad. This is like, it's like talking that organs, just the market of organs. It's like, okay, it's important, and you are doing a good if you are giving.
Well, maybe an organ will be an AI for the future.
But again,
an organ will be a cyborg, and you have an AI implanted.
Just let me express at least my awareness of what we are talking about here. Okay, so I'm not saying that's okay, but it's like we are talking about people's data. Okay.
Belén.
Well, I was just thinking that we will have to apply minimization principle in ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Just to do a selection of our data, which is a philosophy. Well, I think it's possible, but again, once you have your data, what are you going to be doing with that? So I think the issue here is like how you interact with the others, with the other economic agents, and who benefits of what, right? Because I think at the end, I think businesses, somehow they don't comply with laws and so on because probably they don't see the benefit. They see probably the benefit is better to comply, not comply with the law than do it.
Now it's happening, but now it's happening because your data is used for others to try to solve your life, but they are solving their lives, not our lives. But what was the idea was that you still custodial your data in a way, and you keep your data under your control, and you hire an artificial intelligence to work for you with your data.
Yeah, I think technically you had to apply security measures because obviously that's cybersecurity issues probably, depending when you store your data. But I think it's possible.
Security is so if you want technical, so it's encryption.
Yeah.
If you want, but it's also a contract. It's legal security too. So here is the two sides in place.
Vasily.
I think that the key here is that we should have the same degree of control of our digital selves as we have of our physical self, as Jordi was mentioning as well. And if there is a solution that helps us to reach this control and we can reach the right balance with it, we can and we should use it. So simple as that.
Well, we have run out of time. This topic of data is enormous, as the data that we generate. And imagine this repository, how much big it should be. If we want to keep all our digital data that we generate.
You have pictures, you have
Yeah.
videos in your phone. You already have it somehow. Yeah, but you don't even realize that's yours.
It's permanent.
Yeah, but this repository somehow already exists in some way.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much to all of you.